Ladies, you know what's so beautiful about this very moment? It's that you're here, not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally, mentally. You showed up. And when a woman shows up fully present, fully aware, fully open, that's when transformation happens. That's when chains break. That's when clarity rises. That's when the true self begins to speak louder than the noise of doubt. Now let's get one thing straight. Intelligence is not just about what you know. It's about who you are becoming. It's not just what you've read or what degree you hold. It's how you move in wisdom. It's the rhythm of your discernment. It's how you navigate your season with grace, integrity, and boldness, even when the world doesn't applaud it. There's something powerful about a woman who has chosen to be intentional with her life. She's not here to impress, she's here to impact. And that's what we're talking about today. We're not here to compare notes with someone else's journey. We're here to awaken the habits that shape the kind of intelligence that endures, the kind that can't be taken, can't be faked, and can't be shaken. Because here's the truth, intelligence in its purest form is a partnership with the divine. It's what happens when clarity meets conviction, when purpose aligns with presence, when a woman understands that her voice was not just meant to be heard, it was meant to echo through generations. That's real intelligence. And so today I want to talk about the 5 habits that mark highly intelligent women. Not the kind of intelligence that just looks good on paper, but the kind that changes rooms, the kind that creates legacy, the kind that silences every lie of inadequacy, the kind that doesn't compete, but completes, the kind that's not afraid to unlearn and relearn, the kind that honors God by showing up fully as herself. These habits are not about perfection. They're about posture. They're about the daily decisions that reflect the deep work happening on the inside, the stillness in chaos, the wisdom in silence, the courage in letting go, the strength in setting boundaries, the faith to wait, and the boldness to move. So whether you're in a season of blooming or a season of rebuilding, I want you to know this: you are not behind. You are not forgotten, and you are most definitely not disqualified. Everything you need is already within you. The fire, the focus, the favor, it's all there. And tonight we're just going to stir it up. Get ready to shift. Get ready to rise. Get ready to step into the version of you that knows exactly who she is and who she's becoming. There's something deeply profound about understanding that intelligence is not just about having the right answers. It's about embodying the right posture. A highly intelligent woman doesn't live to be seen. She lives to be aligned. She's not hustling for her worth. She's walking in her knowing. And this kind of intelligence doesn't shout. It speaks with a quiet confidence that can only come from within. It shows up in how she carries herself, how she listens, how she chooses not to engage in every battle, because she understands that some battles are distractions disguised as invitation. She doesn't need to prove herself to anyone, because her sense of value is already deeply rooted in who she is, not in what she can produce. She's not performing, she's being. And that alone shifts the atmosphere when she walks into a room. You can feel it, the peace, the poise, the presence. She doesn't come to dominate, she comes to contribute. She's not trying to take up space, she is space. And her presence invites others to rise too. Highly intelligent women choose intentionality as a way of life. They don't move through their days reacting to everything around them. They move with rhythm, with purpose, with direction. Even when they're unsure of the next step, they still move with intention, trusting that clarity often comes after obedience, not before it. They are guided by a deeper wisdom that says, I don't need to know everything, but I do need to be faithful with what I do. And this lifestyle, it's marked by discipline, by discernment, by divine timing. She knows that not every door is hers to walk through, and not every opportunity is a God appointment. She's not chasing what looks good. She's choosing what is good. Even if it's quiet, even if it's hidden, even if no one claps for it. She understands that a life of intelligence is a life of alignment, and alignment will always take you further than ambition ever could. This woman doesn't try to replicate someone else's blueprint. She honors her own process, her own story, her own voice. She knows that comparison is the enemy of clarity, and so she chooses to stay in her lane, not out of fear, but out of freedom. Because she's free enough to know that her timing is sacred and her pace is protected. She's not in a race. She's in alignment with her own destiny. And so she becomes a mirror. When people encounter her, they start to reflect on themselves, not because she's trying to teach, but because she is a living lesson. She reminds others, often without words, that there's a higher way to live, a deeper way to be, a more authentic way to lead. That's the kind of intelligence we're talking about. Not the kind that shows up on a resume, but the kind that shows up in how you live. There's a difference between knowing a lot and walking in wisdom. Information is everywhere. It's at our fingertips. It's in our pockets. It's constantly screaming for our attention. But wisdom is sacred. It's quiet. It doesn't demand the spotlight, but it changes everything when it enters the room. Highly intelligent women have learned that being smart isn't just about accumulating facts. It's about cultivating discernment. It's not about having the loudest voice in the room. It's about knowing when to speak and, more importantly, when to listen. These women are not impressed by how much someone knows. They are drawn to how someone applies what they know. There is a difference. Because wisdom knows that timing is everything. You can say the right thing at the wrong time and it still won't land. You can have all the insight in the world, but if you don't have the character to carry it, it becomes empty noise. That's why intelligent women, they pause, they pray, they process. They allow God to breathe on what they carry before they release it, because they understand that wisdom is more than intellect, it is intimacy with truth. They are led not by impulse, but by insight. They are not moved by the latest trends or social media debates or who's getting the most attention. They know how to separate what is urgent from what is important. They don't allow their values to be swayed by public opinion because they are anchored in something deeper. They trust the still, small voice over the loud, anxious noise of the world. That voice, that divine whisper, is their compass, and it never fails them. These women are students of life, but not in the way the world defines it. They don't just learn from books or podcasts or masterclasses, though they honor those spaces. But they also learn from heartbreak, from stillness, from transitions, from failure, from obedience. They've discovered that sometimes the greatest wisdom is hidden in the very places we try to avoid, in silence, in solitude, in surrender. And because of that, they don't fear discomfort. They lean into it, knowing that even pain can be a teacher when your heart is positioned for growth. They are not quick to judge others, because wisdom gives them eyes to see differently. They understand that people act from their level of awareness. And so rather than react in offense, they respond in grace. That's not weakness. That's strength under control. That's intelligence. It takes depth to love people well, even when they disappoint you. It takes wisdom to walk away from drama without needing to defend yourself. It takes maturity to hold your peace when you could easily speak your mind. But that's what sets them apart. They don't need to prove their intelligence. They live it. And when decisions need to be made, they don't panic. They pray. They ask for wisdom, not just for what to do, but for how to do it. They know that method matters just as much as the message. They know that God doesn't just care about outcomes, He cares about obedience. And they choose to walk in a way that honors both. So while the world may celebrate quick wit and fast answers, highly intelligent women are investing in the kind of wisdom that builds legacy, the kind that grows over time, the kind that doesn't just fill a room, but fills a life. In a world that celebrates constant movement, constant output, and constant noise, the highly intelligent woman chooses stillness, not as an escape, but as a strategy. She understands that silence is not emptiness, it's sacred space. It's the soil where clarity is planted, where discernment is cultivated, and where her inner world is realigned. Stillness is not weakness for her, it is wisdom. It's the place she returns to, not because she's retreating, but because she knows how. It is in that quiet space where she receives insight that can't be found in the chaos. She doesn't fear the pause, she embraces it. Because she knows that the world might be spinning fast, but her soul was never meant to move at the speed of the algorithm. She knows that rushing leads to misalignment. She has tasted the difference between activity and anointing, between productivity and purpose. And so she slows down, not to do less, but to become more. Stillness is where she hears God the clearest. It's where her spirit is reminded that she is not defined by what she does, but by who she is becoming. This kind of woman is not constantly seeking to be seen. She's seeking to be centered. She's not always talking because she's learned the power of listening, not just to others, but to herself, to her intuition, to the spirit within. She's developed a habit of meeting herself in the quiet, asking the hard questions, examining her motives, laying down her fears. And because of this, her actions come from alignment, not anxiety. There is strength in the way she chooses solitude, not because she's isolating, but because she's incubating. Her silence isn't empty, it's full of divine downloads. It's where she makes room for strategy, where she receives instruction, where she gets clarity on the when and the how, not just the what. She understands that movement without direction is just noise, and she refuses to build her life on scattered thoughts. She's building with precision, with prayer, with peace. Even in conflict, she doesn't respond from her wounds. She responds from her wisdom, because stillness has taught her to observe rather than react. She's not driven by emotion in the moment because she's developed the habit of sitting with things before she speaks on them. She's become a student of her own soul. She knows that just because something feels urgent doesn't mean it's important. And just because something demands her attention doesn't mean it deserves her energy. Stillness has taught her that rest is not laziness, it is warfare. It is resistance against a culture that equates exhaustion with success. It is her way of declaring that her value is not in her busyness, but in her being. And so she protects her peace. She honors her rhythms. She recognizes the sacredness of being still and knowing, not just knowing the answers, but knowing God, knowing herself, and knowing when it's time to wait. Because what most don't see is that her stillness is active. It is where strategies are formed, where boundaries are born, where healing happens. It's where vision becomes clearer, where her yes becomes more powerful and her no becomes more confident. Stillness isn't a place she stumbles into, it's a space she chooses. And when she does move, she moves with power, with clarity, with conviction, because the woman who knows how to be still is the woman who knows how to truly lead, not from noise, but from knowing, not from pressure, but from presence. Emotional mastery is one of the most sacred, most refined forms of intelligence. It's not about suppressing what you feel. No, not at all. Highly intelligent women feel everything. They feel deeply, richly, and fully. But what sets them apart is that their emotions don't rule them. They have learned through experience, through failure, through self-reflection, and through grace, how to sit with their emotions without being swallowed by them. That kind of strength isn't developed overnight. It's forged in the fire of disappointment, in the silence of waiting seasons, and in the quiet victories no one ever sees. These women know that emotions are messengers, not masters. They welcome what they feel without allowing it to write the narrative. They're honest with themselves. They don't pretend they're not hurt when they are, or that they're not angry when they feel that fire rise up. But they've grown. They've learned to pause. They've learned that reaction is easy, but response is sacred. And that pause, that breath between the feeling and the action, is where their power lies. That's where wisdom lives. That's where maturity is born. Highly intelligent women have broken up with emotional impulsivity. They've seen what happens when decisions are made from places of pain, pride, or fear. They know what it's like to speak too soon, to hold grudges too long, to burn bridges that could have been walked across with patience. And so they've made the decision to grow, to feel without flailing, to speak without spitting fire, to choose composure, even when chaos tries to knock on the door of their peace. They're not emotionally unavailable, they're emotionally anchored. They can sit in a storm and not be swept away by it. And it's not because life has always been kind to them, but because they've learned to extract wisdom from their wounds. They've cried in silence and healed in surrender. They've had to let go of what felt good to protect what was healthy. They've had to say no, not because they didn't care, but because they cared too much to stay broken. They've chosen healing. That's the thing. Highly intelligent women don't just carry emotional intelligence, they live it. They walk it out in how they handle rejection, in how they navigate confrontation, in how they love people who don't always love them well, and in how they forgive, not because others deserve it, but because they deserve the freedom that forgiveness brings. That is emotional mastery. This doesn't mean they never get triggered or never feel overwhelmed. But they don't let those moments define them. They've trained themselves to return to center, to ask the hard questions. Why did that bother me so much? What story am I telling myself right now? Is this true? They check their own hearts before they check someone else's. They know their triggers, and instead of hiding them, they bring them before God and ask for transformation. And that inner work, it shows in the way they respond to conflict, in the way they hold space for others without projecting their own insecurities, in the way they can be honest without being cruel, in the way they apologize with integrity and correct with compassion. It shows in their presence, calm, grounded, unshaken, not because life has been gentle, but because they've become stronger. Emotional mastery doesn't make them cold, it makes them clear. It gives them the ability to set healthy boundaries without guilt, to say what they mean without venom, and to lead from a place of healing, not hardness. They don't need to prove they're strong. They've lived through too much to waste time pretending. And because of that, they've become safe spaces for themselves and for others. The truth is, a woman who governs her emotions is a woman who cannot be controlled. She's not easily manipulated, not easily baited, not easily broken, because her strength isn't in what she shows, it's in what she knows. She knows who she is. She knows who her God is. And she knows that every emotion has a place, but only she gets to decide its power. Boundaries. That word alone carries so much weight, especially for women who have been taught directly or subtly that to be good is to be endlessly available, that to be worthy is to be accessible, that to be loving is to always say yes, to always show up, to always carry what others won't, even at the expense of your own peace. But highly intelligent women have learned, sometimes through heartbreak and burnout, sometimes through therapy and revelation, that boundaries are not barriers, they are bridges. Bridges to wholeness, to rest, to purpose, to alignment. They no longer equate self-sacrifice with self-worth. They've unlearned the toxic idea that loving others well requires abandoning themselves in the process. They've stopped overextending out of guilt and started honoring their no as a holy thing. Because here's the truth, boundaries are not selfish. They are sacred, and they are a sign of maturity, not meanness. They are not built to keep people out. They are designed to protect what's within. And what's within her, it's valuable, it's divine, it's necessary. It's not for everyone, and she knows that now. Highly intelligent women have learned to stop apologizing for needing space, for needing time, for needing quiet, for needing to recharge. They've realized that their energy is finite and their calling is too important to keep handing it over to anything that drains them. They are no longer fueled by the need to be liked. They are moved by the need to be well, because when a woman is well, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, she becomes a force, a lighthouse. A safe place for others because she first became a safe place for herself. She has stopped over-explaining. She no longer feels the need to defend every decision that prioritizes her peace. She's not performing for acceptance. She's living from a place of deep clarity. And that clarity has given her the courage to be misunderstood, because she knows that not everyone will understand the boundaries she sets, and that's okay. Her boundaries aren't up for debate. They are rooted in discernment, in wisdom, in the quiet conversations she's had with God behind closed doors. This woman isn't cold. She's clear. She's still kind. She still loves deeply, but she loves from a full place now, not a fractured one. She gives from overflow, not depletion. And when she doesn't have the capacity, she no longer sacrifices her sanity to meet someone else's expectations. That's not rudeness. That's responsibility. That's intelligence. That's honoring the assignment on her life without allowing guilt to rob her of joy. Boundaries have taught her what alignment feels like. They've taught her that not every relationship is covenant, not every invitation is divine, and not every connection deserves longevity. She's learned to release with grace, to walk away without resentment, to choose peace over proximity. And that has freed her because she no longer holds on to people or patterns that God has already called her away from. She's become fluent in protecting her inner world, not from fear, but from wisdom. She understands that stewardship isn't just about money or ministry, it's about energy, time, presence. And she guards those things like the treasures they are. She checks in with herself. She notices when something feels off. She doesn't numb herself to the drain. She responds to it. She honors her capacity without shame. This kind of boundary work isn't easy. It costs her. Sometimes it means disappointing others. Sometimes it means sitting with loneliness. Sometimes it means detaching from what once felt familiar. But every time she honors her boundaries, she's telling her future self, I've got you. She's building a life with integrity, not image. A life where she can thrive, not just survive. Because she understands this now. Boundaries don't block love, they preserve it. They don't hinder connection, they protect authenticity. And they don't push people away, they create space for the right people to stay. The ones who don't just want her access, but her alignment. The ones who respect her no because they recognize the value of her yes. And so she moves differently now. She speaks with authority. She rests without guilt. She gives without resentment. And she walks with a kind of peace that can only come from a woman who finally realized her soul is worth protecting. There is something timeless, something holy about a woman who knows how to cultivate a vision for her life. A highly intelligent woman doesn't just dream for the sake of fantasy. She envisions, she builds, she partners with heaven. Her vision is not rooted in ego, it is rooted in purpose. She sees beyond what is and aligns herself with what can be. She carries a clarity that makes her dangerous to systems of confusion, to environments of small thinking, and to patterns that want to trap her in cycles beneath her calling. This kind of woman is not moved by trends. She is led by truth. She is not motivated by applause. She is fueled by assignment. She's not caught up in the illusion of perfection or performance. She's invested in impact. She's not busy trying to be everything to everyone. She's committed to becoming everything God has called her to be. And that requires vision, not just ambition, not just goals on paper, but holy vision. Vision that requires her to become someone she's never been before. Highly intelligent women understand that vision demands discipline, that what you see must eventually shape what you do. It's not enough to dream, she builds. It's not enough to want, she works. And not from a place of striving, but from a place of stewardship. She shows up for herself daily, not because it's easy, but because it's sacred. Her routines aren't just habits, they are altars. Places where she meets God in the mundane and invites him into her movement. Because she knows that true vision requires divine partnership. You don't get to carry something eternal with temporal effort. She's strategic, not scattered, focused, not frantic. She doesn't do everything, she does what matters. She protects her time like the resource it is. She curates her circle intentionally. She puts herself in environments that feed her future, not her fears. Because she knows what she's building requires more than excitement. It requires endurance. And she's not just preparing for the next opportunity, she's preparing for the next version of herself. The version who can sustain the promise. The version who can carry the weight of the vision without breaking under the pressure. She prays with vision. She plans with vision. She forgives with vision. She rests with vision. She gives herself grace with vision because she knows she's becoming someone who hasn't existed before. And that becoming takes time. That becoming will be lonely at times. It will require her to walk away from what's good in order to receive what's God. It will stretch her, refine her, strip her. But it will never fail her because vision is what carries her when motivation fades. And don't mistake her gentleness for complacency. She is clear. She is committed. She is doing the work no one sees so she can become the woman everyone will one day remember, not for her fame, but for her fruits, for her faithfulness, for her courage to see what others ignored and build what others were too afraid to even imagine. She is not here by accident. She is here on assignment. And her vision, it's not a wish, it's a word, it's a promise, it's a declaration that something more is possible, not just for her, but for every woman watching her say yes to the process. That's what makes her powerful. That's what makes her unshakable. Not that she sees far, but that she sees deep. And she lives her life every single day with one truth etched into her soul. If God gave me the vision, then he's already made a way for the fulfillment.